What's up, everybody? It's Cardboard Legacy, and over here we have Robert, Cardboard Squares, co-host of Talking Cardboard. So we are in episode 8 now, and tonight we're actually going to be talking about NHL, F1. We've got a really hot take that we want to discuss on a goat ladder. We're going to touch on some NBA, and then I have a small shop update for everybody. So glad to have you with us. Robert, here's our disclaimer for the episode. I'm just getting started into hockey cards. I have a little bit of F1 knowledge from old days, not as much, recent. I watched a little bit on Netflix and stuff, but really not a ton of knowledge on it. So I'll be relying on what you've researched tonight, and you're going to be relying on what you read. So it's, we've got just a limited amount of resources between us. So with that, we'll just get started. Let's talk about the path in the hobby when you're just getting started with NHL.
So NHL, I've loved NHL for years. I find it to be probably in the top 3 skill sports there is. Everyone says, oh, it might be easy, it might be that. Well, you go try to run on a razor-thin blade on ice, try not to get hit, trying to put a little round spear into a net. It's not the easiest thing in the world. However, due to the fact of it being such a skill sport, it doesn't have the demand nor the advertising or TV time that the other big leagues have.
I agree with that.
So it's just one of those things that right now Upper Deck still holds the rights to NHL. So with that, Upper Deck has kind of lost its luster in the card world, in my opinion, other than hockey, over the past 15 years. Like with any sport, there's different levels. So like, for instance, you have stuff like this, which is going to be your black diamond, nice card, jersey, numbered,
yep.
Nice and thick, great quality cards. But it's not in the forefront of your TVs, your commercials being pushed. So it's not as hype as a lot of other things that are going across the hobby.
And I kind of suffer from, in my area in Wisconsin, we don't have a hockey team, a professional one that's in the NHL. We have, some small, lower circuit teams. I don't even know exactly what leagues those are, if you know what I mean. But we've got just a few around the cities and in the state, but we don't have a huge hockey culture in this area just because we don't have any professional hockey teams, but there still are hockey collectors. I've had people ask me, do you have any hockey stuff? And it's like, I have a little, but I don't have any sealed wax, but now I do, and I will. So, I mean, that's going to be different, but the having it around for people so that they can have it, and the people who collect it, I think is important. Even if you don't know a lot about it. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but even within the hobby itself, it's going to be supply and demand, but it's also the drive. So the NHL does not have a multi-$100 million TV deal. They've worked something out with ESPN, which they signed last year for 7 years, and we hope that, or I personally hope that ESPN doesn't screw the pooch, so to say, and figures out how to advertise the NHL the right way.
Okay.
And kind of push it and put it on the forefront. If you have NHL games on ESPN, on ABC in the primetime era, and they're pushing it, doing the commercials and advertising just like the NBA does, it's going to make people see it more. If people see it more, it's going to push the demand. The supply is always going to be the same with hockey unless something goes absolutely crazy. But it's just one of those things where it takes money to make money, and people just aren't willing to put money into the NHL. But you are going to have the people that collect it because they love the game, as it is with any sport. If you love the game, you're going to collect it.
I feel like when you have a smaller fan base too, that things are more rare almost in those fan bases because it's just a smaller community. So you don't have as many people out there chasing these amazing cards that are in some of these sets.
It's kind of crazy, coming from Florida, you look at some of the sports teams down there. I want to say they're probably the number 2 team in the whole state of Florida across all sports behind the Bucks, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Okay.
Florida never sees snow. We don't have natural ice.
No, it doesn't seem like it fits well. Just like, Arizona, but they're having a different trouble, I think, aren't they? The professional team in Arizona there, what are they called? I forget. That's terrible that I don't know the name, but I thought that they were getting downsized in their arena. I heard on the radio, I believe.
I mean, that's the thing. It takes a lot of money to run these ice rinks, and people don't want to put the money in to spend it.
I
I
agree.
mean, you have to have those large conglomerated areas where you have a large mass of people that are going to go to games. And that's the hard part. And I find that to be, that's why some of the southern teams and the warmer teams work, because people don't have to drive in the snow, drive in the ice to get to these games. It's more easily accessible in the South than it actually is in the North, which is kind of crazy due to the fact that it's a cold sport.
Right, right. So, but I suppose you can live anywhere and play a cold sport, right?
Yep. And it's just for those of you who don't know, we're into round 2 of the playoffs right now, and a lot of people probably don't know that. But you got the Battle of Florida right now, actually, with Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Florida Panthers, which happened last year as well. I wish it didn't happen. I don't like doing the interstate battle as it comes down to the finals, but that's where we're at. I think coming from the West, you have Colorado, who 4-game sweep in the first series. Every other game or every other series in the first round win at least 6 games, if not 7. So you're talking about having an extra 10 to 12 days of rest, which is a huge advantage. It's like the first round bye in football, first round bye in basketball.
Yep.
You get that rest, you're fresh, your legs are good, your arms are good. You're not worried about injuries, little nagging things people can get taken care of. As far as the playoffs this year, to me, the most surprising thing, sorry, Shelby, thank you for the comments. We got the hockey in here for you, but your Pittsburgh Penguins, that they suffered a massive defeat to probably one of the teams that they wanted to lose to the least, in the New York Rangers.
Rangers, yeah. I heard about that on the radio. I was like, oof. That I mean, they were then talking about how the Penguin, the dynasty might be over, for a bit here as they rebuild.
Well, it's also to the point where, a couple of their best players are in their early to mid-ish 30s.
Sure.
So it's one of those things in any sport. Once you hit that 30, 32 mark, you're kind of going to be on the downside no matter what it is. You're not going to have the vertical leap in the basketball. You're not going to have the 40 time in the football.
Unless you're LeBron James or, maybe Jordan or Kobe or somebody, something like that. But most of them, no.
Yeah. So, and it's like, we have Sid the Kid Crosby, went through some bad concussion stuff and missed a couple seasons. They got Evgeny Malkin, both of which may or may not be back in Pittsburgh next year, which if that does happen, it will literally be a whole new regime in Pittsburgh. They'll be starting over from scratch.
Tough place to be. A lot of rough. I mean, the competition out there in hockey is brutal. Literally, they will punch you in the face.
I mean, it's insane. You have some of the toughest athletes in the world. I mean, you look at, soccer. I mean, even basketball now with guys taking these flops and getting hit and going to the ground and crying.
Half of them are wimps, half of them are men.
There's guys in hockey taking, a plastic puck to the face at 100 miles an hour, breaking a nose, cracking a cheekbone, 17 stitches, and they're back out on the ice.
Right. Like, so just put me back out there, coach. I got this.
But it's just, so like right now, with round 2, as I said, we got Tampa and Florida. The Avalanche and the Blues or Avalanche are up 1-0 right now. I can honestly almost see that being a sweep as well. I just think the Avalanche are untouchable in the West. We got Calgary and the Oilers. Calgary 1-0, but the Oilers do have something very special and a guy named Connor McDavid. They have some very good up-and-coming rookies, Tyler Benson. So if McDavid could somehow pull it off and get to the cup and win the cup, I think that would be a huge thing for hockey. Connor McDavid was one of the guys that was pumped up, kind of brought people back to looking at hockey. He's had 6-figure card sales, some of the largest card sales in hockey. So if he could do it, it was like your man getting his championship last year. It put him over the hump. It brought a lot of steam to Milwaukee, a team people may have not looked at for the past couple of years, but when they won that championship, there's no shying away from them now.
Yeah.
And then we got the Rangers and Hurricanes, Carolina up 1-0. I think it's gonna be very interesting. See how it goes. We got a couple of games on tonight as we do as basketball. And I do think that's one of the biggest issues for hockey is trying to compete with airtime with NBA playoffs.
Prime time anything though, you know what I mean? Like most of those time slots where they're playing are very competitive. There's either baseball or playoff basketball on. I mean, there's a lot of different things, you know.
I think that playoff hockey could compete with regular season baseball.
I would hope so, but
I don't think that playoff hockey can compete with playoff basketball.
no, shouldn't.
So,
I mean, and when you look at the numbers, you know, legitimately of even fan base size.
but it's across the hobby. You keep hearing now that, you know, some of the modern stuff is being overpopulated with grading. Prices are going to go down a little bit. Collect the goats. Let's talk about one of the best athletes to ever walk the earth, and that's Wayne Gretzky.
Right.
His prices are fractional compared to those of a Michael Jordan, of a Tom Brady, of a Mickey Mantle, of a Babe Ruth. But I put him in that same echelon of being the greatest of your sport. So it's kind of confusing to me that everyone says collect the goats. Well, why not dip into a category that's being kind of untouched right now, and that is
Sure.
hockey.
Underappreciated.
Mhm. And if ESPN does kind of push the advertising and get the demand and the hype and the love for the sport back into the people, you're going to see some incredible jumps in these card prices, which is going to be nice for the hockey collectors out there if that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, long-term investment is as long as the fan bases either stay the same, you know, right now, which sustains it, right? Otherwise, if they can get it to grow by actually doing some real good advertising and getting the name out there, make a difference, you know, in viewership, get some people really interested in it, you know. Maybe they need to do a Mickey Mouse hockey movie or something.
But
Um,
even past that, it's just even, you know, content creators, people who are very active in the hobby. I mean, look at, you know, our next category being F1. F1 was not a huge thing in the States 4 or 5 years ago. Yes, the people that watch it,
right,
but
diehards.
as you know, it kind of became that new thing on the market. It kind of blew up with the hype.
It did.
If we have anybody kind of push hockey here, whether it be, you know, one of your larger content creators, you know, your Gary V, whoever it may be, I think it's kind of crazy how much the market can be manipulated by a single person. And I think that people need to kind of get outside the box and explore for themselves. But
Sure.
if that does happen, it's going to cause a massive drive for the hockey scene itself.
Right, right. No, I think, you know, as I open my shop, I'm gonna have a little more opportunity to get into purchasing hockey. But what do you think are good investments, or not good investments, but just good hockey cards? What's your favorite cards in hockey? I mean, which brand or set is best?
For me, it's the cup, and the cup usually it ranges between $800 to $1,000 a box.
Okay,
It's gonna be one of your superior high end kind of stuff, closer to like a flawless or NT. It's basically the NT of hockey. But I
okay.
mean, you look at national treasures at, you know, 4 or 5 thousand. You know,
Four
your
and a half, yeah.
15,000. So the fact that you can get it for a fraction of the cost, but some of these cards still bring the numbers that these flawless and NT other sports bring.
Right.
It's for the bang for the buck. The cup is probably one of the better, if not the best, high-end sports product that you can actually buy. I mean, it's
Interesting.
just kind of crazy out there, but due to the fact of not a lot of people buying it and trying to sell on the secondary market, you don't really see the prices or the sales. But if it were to get popping, it would extremely get busy.
So this is what you can get at the store, right? You just get a box of this stuff right
Yes,
here.
that's very similar to, like, you know, your series one for you know, baseball.
Tops, right?
Yep,
Like
like
it's
little
almost the
top
same thing
series.
as the tops.
Yeah, and out of those, you're going to get stuff like you know, different kind of young guns. You're going to get portraits and player action.
Oh, sure.
So it's your rookie cards, but these are the specialty versions. You know, the little kind of inserts. But young guns can drive in some very good money. It's like prospecting in baseball as well. Then you have, you know, you're kind of like a little bit of a step up, or right along the same lines, your allure, where you'll have some different kind of spectrums, different parallels, different colors, more numbered products, so on and so forth. and then obviously your super high end with the cup, or your black diamond is going to be right in the middle. That's like your barcodes where you're getting your jerseys, your numbered, your
Nice.
diamond cards, stuff like that.
Sure.
Everything varies, but I'm going to be interested to see even the older hockey stuff. They don't make inserts for any sport anymore like they did in the 90s. Like, this is one of my favorite inserts they ever made for hockey products. So the goalies who never really get all that much love, they did a zoom in on their helmet, nice little swirl, but you
Yeah.
give the goalie some love. Someone who maybe doesn't get all the action all the time.
Sure.
But if they did this in baseball, they did a Yadier Molina catcher's cap, a Joey Bart rookie catcher's cap. It
Okay.
would be a sought after card. It'd almost be
Yeah.
like, your banger inserts, that kind of stuff. So it interests me in the fact of, I think card design itself needs to get either spruced up or kind of thrown back to the retro to kind of, bring the older collectors who have been around back into it, but also show people the roots and the beginnings of where the inserts actually started.
You know what I want to see before I leave this earth? I want to see a 1990 Topps Chrome reprint in baseball.
You'll see that.
You think so?
I really do. I think that the whole Topps Chrome line in a couple of years is going to be absolutely bonkers. To have Topps Chrome football and basketball coming back, I think that they're going to have to do kind of like a throwback, and just to pay homage to where the beginnings came.
Sure.
I mean, it's 4 more years to Fanatics really takes over, so it's 2026. So I mean, you could do a 30-year anniversary from 1996, which would actually was a pretty good year for all sports across the board, to be honest with you. So I think you're going to see that a lot. You see it in baseball products, especially with your Don Russes and everything like that. Well, they'll do a 1985 retro, a 1984 retro, or whatever the year is from 30 years ago. They'll do a little throwback to that. I would like to see more of that in the hobby across the board, because it's paying homage to the past and the history of how we got there, but putting these new guys on a card that they grew up with.
Right.
You got a 30-year-old baseball player. This is the stuff that they looked at when they were a kid.
Right.
And now they're on that same type of card. So it's a nice little win-win situation for everybody.
I like it. So what else? Anything to close off the NHL segment other than we think it's a good thing to start looking into, and I'm just getting into it myself, and I'm gonna enjoy it. I think getting through it.
I definitely just think it's probably one of the most undervalued sports in the card market as it stands right now. If you're a collector or a hobbyist, you're obviously already collecting who you want. But this goes out to the people that maybe want to try to get to a card show, try to get into some sales, and maybe you're going to do it the right way and take 6 months, a year, and build up, a good inventory of products they can start setting up. I think hockey is probably the most bang for your buck as far as buying right now. I mean, you look at different prisms and stuff, $2,000 a box. You could go buy 3 or 4 of the cup and have a whole table full of the cup hockey cards, which are all super high end.
Perfect, man. I love it. Good breakdown. I learned a little bit there talking about the hockey, and so I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go into Formula One at this time. We want to discuss that. We think it's an important segment. It's had a lot of hype recently. Prices up and prices also down. So there's a few things going on with that. And Robert again has us with another update there.
I've watched F1 and racing for a very long time. I was a big NASCAR guy, big open wheel guy. Couple of things. One, the hype is very, very big right now. And one of the things that scares me the most with the hype is, for a couple of years, people don't realize this, NASCAR was the fastest growing and most popular sport in the United States. Yes, it may not have affected the hobby. People may not have collected the cards, but just because something is big right now does not mean it's going to last forever. The only positive is that over the past couple of years, we've gone from 1 race in the United States, which was in Texas, to now 2, which, we just had Miami, which was a phenomenal race, by the way. And now we're adding on Vegas.
Right.
I think a race in Vegas going down the strip is going to be.
I was going to say that's a city circuit, right?
Yeah.
The Vegas one's going to be a city circuit, and I think that's going to be incredible, like absolutely incredible.
the track layout for what they have right now is just, oh my God. Like
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't looked, so I gotta look.
it's a racer's dream. I mean, it's just 100% incredible. Um, but I mean, even you talked about when we started was you watched the first series of F1 Drive to Survive on Netflix.
Yep.
For the people that have gotten really into the F1, people that are already through season 2, and once you watch season 2, you'll realize this. But people like Max Verstappen don't have as much private one-on-one interview time. They don't have as many segments.
Sure.
And he openly came out and said that Netflix was taking words and clips of what he was saying and using it to create drama amongst the drivers because, yes, they have to make a TV show, but he didn't like the fact of they were kind of twisting what he was doing.
Making
in a
him look
way.
like a villain
Yep,
almost. Yeah.
exactly, for ways to improve the ratings. So it's like if you have something that's being driven by a show on Netflix when people were locked down and it was something for them to watch when everyone was home and it drove that kind of craze for it way up. You have every content creator that's out there almost talking about F1. Um, Not to say that these guys aren't incredible athletes. They're driving cars
Way faster than we're ever gonna do
yeah,
it. Way better.
190 plus down the straightaways, 140 in the turns. I mean,
I respect it.
it's not hard.
It's
They're
like
driving.
it's like golf almost, It's precision.
Yeah, but golf, you can very easily replace a club. F1, it's a very expensive replacement when you wreck a car.
True. It's
You're
true.
driving some of the most studied, the most R&D vehicles in the world. But like for me, one of the biggest things when it comes to the F1 is you look at when we're trying to chase, the goats and the greats, and sometimes it takes a little while to figure out who those people are. A name that is forever known around the F1 community is Mark Schumacher. And now his son, came out this year, is racing, started off his year. So typically in my eyes, when it comes to basketball, if, someone gets drafted and they don't do so well, but 5 years down the road, they're an all-star, leading a team, winning a championship, the price of that sealed wax will go up.
Right.
So, I mean, you have a box of 1991
Yep.
F1.
Yeah.
It's something that you probably don't see all the time. If you're a regular guy going to a hobby shop, going to a store, you're not going to see this stuff on the shelves at all times. But my question is, why is stuff like that not skyrocketing in price like it would for basketball, football, baseball, and across the board? So it's just kind of interesting to me in the sense that this is one of the fastest growing, highest demanded cards in the hobby right now.
Yeah, Schumacher rookie cards are in that box, right? And I think you can still get them for like 200 or something.
Yep. But it's just even the release, 2 years ago, $150, $200 a box. This year on release day, I think it was $600, $800 a box. So you're talking about 4xing your opening price over 1 year. And that's simply due to the hype. And I think that's why you see some old school guys don't like the internet due to the fact that it pushes cards, all the shill bidding, and people almost tell each other what to buy into and what not to, and they want to be cool, so they get into it. So that's my only fear of F1 kind of being faddish. I don't think it will be. I think it's around to stay. It's been a mainstay in every other country across the world other than here for a very, very long time. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the years to come. But it's just shocking to me that older product with the original goats, the people who made the sport what it is, or at least kind of put it on the mainstay map, isn't causing stuff like that to skyrocket in price.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that anybody in the F1 community really understands, how important some of these older people were in getting the sport to where it is now. I mean, the dominance that they've had in driving over the years. I mean, even Hamilton's been around for a while. Obviously, if he's won as much as he has, he's had to have been around for a while. And Schumacher was right before him, in terms of like generational goats in driving. And, arguably there was Ayrton Senna, who was before Schumacher kind of, and he tragically died in a race. And his cards are in that grid stuff that I have as well, which is, kind of cool. And then, so there's a lot of angles in it, just like other collecting. But, I think some of the Topps Chrome products are really sweet looking, but I don't think they're worth $700 a hobby box.
I mean, it's an amazing product, and it's very cool to see, but it's just one of those things, like, when we're going to chase the goats, let's go after the people that, really impacted the sport. And Schumacher was one of those guys. When he came in, his drive to win, his competitiveness was just one for no other. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And speaking of Netflix and everything going on, he actually has his own little documentary on Netflix right now. It's a great watch if you haven't seen it. But it'll kind of teach you a lot about him. His son talks about getting into the industry, following his father's footsteps. But you do have, the greats right now with Hamilton. But even across any sport, Hamilton is what in the NBA would be called a super team.
Sure.
Part of Mercedes. They have some of the largest spending in the sport, right next to Ferrari. And that's what kind of, when I try to think about the market of the hobby itself, I look at the teams in F1 like teams in another sport. So you have your major markets, your Mercedes, your McLaren, your Ferrari. That's your Golden State Warriors, your New York Knicks,
Sure.
your Miami Heat, your big name teams. But then you have some of these, Utah Jazz, some of these teams that may not be where they want to be, but they don't have the money to spend like Mercedes does.
Right.
And across all those sports, you saw some salary cap and some pricing caps come in to kind of try to equalize the competition. And I think you're going to see that come into F1 as it grows, especially in the United States.
They don't have a salary cap for their improvements for their vehicles. It's just whatever they want to throw into it. That's kind of impressive in a way, though.
I mean, a couple of years ago, if don't quote me on the numbers, but I believe Ferrari spent something like $450 million. Whereas a team on the bottom part of the 20 teams only spent like $80 million.
That's still a whole bunch of million.
It's a lot of million, but I mean, it's very comparable to baseball teams. The Yankees buying championships for years.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. Paying luxury tax in the NBA, right? If you go over, you pay an extra amount, and nobody cares because everybody gets extra money.
But it's just some of these markets can't afford to pay that, and it's just one of those things where Williams Racing is one of the forego teams of F1. Back in 25 years ago, they were one of the top tiered teams in F1, and just simply due to the fact that they don't carry the name and the prestige of a Mercedes or Ferrari, they don't have the income coming in as the world grew, as technology grew, as we get all these supercars that are selling for $1 million to regular consumers. It's hard to keep up when people can just put more and more and more money into the car than you can.
Yeah, that seems somewhat unfair. However, maybe just bump down to the next lower level of racing and call it a day.
Yeah, but that's like, I mean, let's think about Pittsburgh Pirates, okay? A baseball team that really has never spent any money. That's like taking them out of the MLB.
But they have 0 World Series.
Yes, but they've had some of the greatest players to ever touch baseball go through that organization. They're just not willing to pay.
Clemente, was he a Pirate?
I believe for a little while, but Barry Bonds, Bobby Bonilla. I mean, you had
Barry Bonds for sure.
Major sluggers go through Pittsburgh.
That's true.
Andrew McCutchen. I mean, it's just if you're willing, but they don't have the market or the area to kind of get those numbers to pay the players what they deserve. I mean, you have a guy with them in Brian Hayes who just took a contract for $80 million over 7 years. You have a pitcher playing for the Mets who's making half of a 7-year deal this season. He's making $42 million this season, and someone just signed a 7-year contract for double that.
Holy cow.
So it's the disparity in money, and that's how it's always going to be. But it's just regretfully, greed and money making is one of those things that drives every single industry. Without money, there is no drive.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, it's a new thing to the U.S. in the sense of the way it's blown up. It's not new to us because we've known about it. There is one American team in F1. They're not the greatest, and that's Haas Racing. It's just kind of, in my opinion, sad and pathetic that we can't keep up with anybody. But I mean, within 2 3 years, I think Honda will 100% dominate with the partnership with Red Bull. Last year's champion, Max Verstappen, brand new Honda motor, absolutely amazing. Probably one of the fastest growing drivers in the sport, quickest to the number of podiums that he has. He's only, I believe, 50 or so podiums behind Lewis Hamilton. Lewis
And he's,
Hamilton,
how old is he?
he's 27, I think.
Yeah, he's got another 13, 14 years if he keeps him, his health in check.
100%. And it's also, I think when you're an F1 driver, you see a lot of guys who are so excited to get the chance. And Schumacher is one of these examples.
Yep.
Eastern European, I want to say he's Austrian/German, but when he was coming up, he just dominated the market in a lower class car, and people saw how much of a skilled driver he was. So everyone thought he was going to go race for Mercedes, kind of rep the home nation, rep your local area. Well, no, he decided to go to Ferrari.
Right.
And he went to what was considered at the time the super team. So I think as F1 begins to evolve, in my personal opinion, if Verstappen is smart, he'll stay at Red Bull for his whole life. I think that's the best way to do it. You look at Lewis Hamilton. He's been part of the Mercedes program since the very beginning. He's never going to go anywhere. They'll never let him leave. I don't think anybody could even see him driving in another team's car.
Right.
But Red Bull had an incredible driver, as close as 6 years ago in Sebastian Vettel. 4 championships in a row. He was Hamilton's biggest competition during his up-and-coming years. He's the guy that had him off the podium, had him out of first place. If it wasn't for Vettel, I mean, Hamilton could be looking at 14, 15 championships right now instead of what he has.
Sure.
So it's one of those crazy things. It's an incredibly fun sport. It's a very good watch. But as it continues to grow, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the cards in the hobby. It's just, as it gets bigger, do the prices go up? Do the print runs go up?
They're already up, I think. I feel like they're up.
I feel like the print runs are up. You're already seeing more parallels added, which is being done across the board in every sport, which is
Right.
diluting the market.
Yep.
I think we're not really going to feel the effects of the pandemic grading situation for probably another 10 months. I mean, you're starting to see things now where, a not super expensive card might have 5 or 10,000 copies graded. To have a population report on something that's not that rare is just going to dilute the market and drive all your prices down.
Right. I agree. Okay. So, yeah, I think, F1's a good investment if you can get the right cards, if they're the right plays, for the right price. But honestly, it's, buyer beware, do your own research, because some of this stuff could come down in price and it could come down fast, especially the base cards, obviously.
100%.
So, Verstappen, you want to do your hot take real quick?
I think Verstappen will, by the end of his career, be the greatest F1 driver to have ever driven up until that point.
Lewis Hamilton records, bye-bye. Max Verstappen's coming in. Robert said so. So, unfortunately, in the world of the NBA, we've had a couple of fan favorite departures. That'd be mine, the Bucks. They couldn't do it. Well, Giannis couldn't do it. More like it, I think, at the end there.
I don't.
And in the last game, it was too much for him to bear. I think he was physically and mentally drained and just couldn't pull the rest of that game through.
I think that anybody who puts up 200 points, 100 rebounds, and 50 assists in one series.
Yeah, this is the only guy who's ever done it.
I mean, I expected to be tired. My biggest takeaway from that is you need one more piece up there.
Yeah, Middleton was out, not an excuse, but I mean, he was your number 2 all season, so it's like, there it is. But the Heat looking like some all-time champions coming through, beating the Celts in game one, right?
Yeah, I mean they've been looking good all season. They looked great against the Celtics. Jimmy Butler doing what Jimmy Butler does, coming alive in the playoffs. I mean, he has 50-plus point games in the regular season for the Heat. I believe he's up to 7 in the playoffs. So it's just one of those situations where everyone talks about once you get to playoffs, baseball, once you hit October, it's a different gear.
Right.
Football, once you hit November, December, it's a different kind of gear. It's the same thing for Jimmy Butler. I think it's going to be a great series. My biggest thing that I love about Miami Boston is just the fact that it's a very energetic and highlight reel type of game where it's two very tight knit defenses versus coming off the West. I mean, everyone that has their Luka stuff is praying Luka can get past Golden State.
Right.
They did it in the regular season. We'll see if they can do it in the playoffs, but it's just Steph Curry, not taking anything away from him, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, incredible players, but it's just kind of the same thing over and over and over again.
It's winning.
It is, but at the same time, boring can kind of like he's fun to watch, and don't get me wrong, but it's just I don't think there's the electricness or kind of I would have much rather have seen a Ja Morant or a
Okay.
Giannis be in that situation. I think it's just so much more exciting to watch
Sure.
as a viewer and as a fan of the game and as a collector.
Right.
Like I'm not taking anything away from Steph Curry or Golden State. They didn't buy that team. They drafted that team. I give them full credit. Steve Kerr, amazing coach, but
Right.
it's
Right.
the
It's
same
boring.
thing. It's kind
Fundamentally awesome basketball is kind of boring.
100% sometimes.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, with that, man, good luck to the Miami Heat. I hope they do some good, but I always like to root for the team that knocks my team off, because then it's like, well, then you were the second best team for sure.
And like I said, Miami Boston goes back a long ways. It's always been a good series, and I do the same thing that you do. If they knock my team out, I'm rooting for them. That way, at least I can say I lost to that team.
Right. Exactly. So, anything else on the NBA you wanted to cover there?
Just going to be exciting playoffs, and like I said, Luka people, cross your fingers,
Yeah,
cross your
hang on.
toes.
Hold on tight, you guys. Hold on tight. I got a couple, not too many, but nothing crazy over here. Just a rookie of the year thing. I think it's graded. Okay, so moving on then to one of our last topics for this episode. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. So a couple things going on at the shop. I got some exciting news. We've got some new display cases that got dropped off. I think it was last week, and I got to get those put together. I got some shelves that I ordered online for the wax to sit on for now. So we got our display shelves. We got some TVs, and then some painting actually happens on the outside of the building tomorrow. It starts. So that's kind of exciting. I'm bringing the vision to life there. So I'm really just kind of, it's surreal that this is all coming together and happening. I did also get some accounts with this distribution just recently. So that's kind of a positive. So hopefully I'll have some better pricing, so I can have some better pricing, if you know what I mean. And then yeah, just a couple of different electrical things, really just fun stuff.
On a 1 to 10, where are the nerves as we get closer and closer?
Well, it's almost like it's getting easier because you see it actually coming together, right? You can't deny how much progress you've got when it's right in front of you if you kept trying, right? So it kind of helps calm you in part of it. But I think as you get ready for something like this, it's always going to be what you don't know that gets you in the end, right? The things that you don't understand about what you're trying to do first. But that's humility, and you take it one step at a time, just like collecting, just like in the hobby.
We're all still learning. If you're not learning, you're not doing it the right way.
100%. I mean, right now I'm trying to order some wax products to have on the shelf for the opening. I'm looking at that right now as I get some of these distributor accounts, because I feel like some of this product's going to disappear if I don't grab it. You know what I mean? And there's like all kinds of baseball that's available, all kinds of basketball that's available, but all the football stuff is really, really ridiculously priced. And
Thank you,
um,
Panini.
well, I mean, it's the classes too, the draft classes. 2020 and 2021 weren't too bad. You got some QBs, you got some wide receivers, some good skill position players in those classes, and I think it's kept that wax level elevated for sure.
I think one thing you should look into as far as football is see if you can get that Bowman U.
Yeah, you think that's a product that people would enjoy?
I like it because it's prospecting on football, but it's a first year product. So
So is it going to be a first Bowman?
exactly. There are first Bowman cards for your quarterbacks in college, your running backs, so on and so forth. So I think it's adding a whole new level. And really what I think that is, I kind of think that Fanatics is playing around to see what they can get away with right now and see how people it's almost like R&D for them for the next couple of years, especially when it comes to the football and basketball.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're seeing your OTE basketball, your Bowman University stuff. So it's very interesting.
Oh, they got a new one too. They got a Topps Finest basketball. Did you see that one? It's like a OG checklist. It's like Hall of Famers only, but it's all, people that can be licensed by them because they're technically,
Not in
not
the
playing.
NBA.
Yep, not part of the Players Association right now.
Exactly. So I
And
think they're kind of testing the waters and doing the R&D, which thoroughly excites me about Fanatics because that means they're taking the time and doing it and not just rushing into it. But it's one of those things like Bowman is a chase product for baseball every year, and it always comes down to that first Bowman. So to have the first Bowman from, a Bryce Young coming out of Alabama, a Kenny Pickett, it's one of those things where I think it's huge. And I also find that in those kind of smaller markets, you have those colleges like up where you're at, Wisconsin is what you guys have. And sometimes those players may or may not make it, but
right.
in the community, they're huge. So to have a first Bowman, Jonathan Taylor would have been awesome.
That would, yeah, I guess that would be pretty cool, especially if it was numbered to 10 with an
And
autograph on it.
they have all that. They have the numbered parallels, the autos. So it's one of those super awesome things. And we owe a lot of that to the NIL deals that all these companies have done across the board to help these college players get what they truly deserve. They're making these colleges a buttload of money. They deserve to make some money themselves.
I agree. I agree. And so on that, we're going to close this off. Thank you guys so much for coming along on this one. Again, like, subscribe, and whether you think we're good or bad, tell your friends. That's all we ask you to do. So we'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you.